Hello, I'm Ollie and this is CriminOlly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, more answers from me to questions from you. It's Ask CriminOlly. Okay, so I've got 4 questions from viewers to go through with you today. And as always, if you want to ask your own question, either leave a comment on one of my videos, but ask CriminOlly at the start of it, or if you want to ask anonymously, then you can email me at criminolly@gmail.com. Right, so let's crack on with the 4 questions. So the first one is from Michelle's Melancholia. Do you believe in the paranormal? And there are some following questions. So, do I believe in the paranormal? No. So I have never encountered anything that leads me to believe in the paranormal, and every example anyone's ever given me of something that they that convinces them that there is a paranormal, I think can be explained, or I have been able to explain myself in other ways, internally. I'm not going to have an argument with them about it or anything, but yeah, so I do not believe in the paranormal. I believe in, I believe that human mind can play tricks on us, and our perception of reality can feel quite bizarre at times, but I do not believe in, an actual paranormal. Michelle's follow-on questions were, so the first one is, have you had any paranormal experiences? So no. And if not, have you had any strange experiences that you can't rationally explain? So no, I haven't. So I do remember my grandmother telling me, so she did believe in the paranormal, and she told this quite compelling story about a time when she'd been in like an antique shop or something like that, and there'd been I think it was a lamp or something, and she'd picked up this lamp to look at it, and immediately had a like a vision, if you like, of, so could imagine this other person from the past handling the lamp, and could visualize this person and visualize their life to an extent. Which definitely sounds, weird, doesn't it? But that to me feels akin to the kind of strange sensation you get when you get deja vu, which I think is caused just by, neurons in your brain misfiring. That would be my rational explanation for that. So I do not believe in the paranormal, and as I say, I've never experienced anything that I couldn't explain rationally. But thank you for the question, Michelle. Next question is from Mark. So you were 12 when you read The Crucifixion Squad and loved it. So this is a book I talked about. I think it was a random book from the shelves that I talked about. So this is a mid-80s kind of quite dark and dystopian British science fiction novel about a kind of horrible, bleak future. And it's a very violent book. So anyway, Mark's question is, so you were 12 when you read The Crucifixion Squad and loved it. When do you think is a good age to start reading these books? And what today would you recommend to a 12-year-old? I think 12 is an okay age to start reading books with more adult, challenging content. With limits. But I was reading Stephen King at 13, I think. And I don't feel that did me any harm. I think there is unlike cinema, where you are actually, seeing something. And I think when you see something, the impact on you can be more significant. And I've talked before on the channel about the fact I'm a bit of a chicken when it comes to scary movies, in a way that I'm not with scary books. So I think for me anyway, and it may be different for different people, for me anyway, watching something is more impactful and can have more of a more of an impact on you, because it's more impactful. But I think when you read, there's a bit of a barrier between you and the events, because you have to read and interpret the words. So there's a bit more distance there. So I actually think, and I'm not saying this is true for every 12-year-old, but I wouldn't have a problem with my son when he was 12 having read, horror stuff. I think it's a safe way to experience to face your fears and read about horrible things. There are many horrible things in the world, and it's important that everybody, you don't need to expose yourself unnecessarily to them. But I do think it's important you have an awareness of them, and I think exploring horror fiction and darker fiction is a good way to do that in a safe environment. In terms of books, I would particularly recommend. I don't know. It feels to me like there's more and more kind of darker content in YA fiction anyway, and there's some YA books I've read which have been really quite explicit, either sexually or in terms of violence. I do actually think Stephen King isn't a bad place to go. I do think he's a writer that somehow taps into something about humanity and about the human experience, which is can be quite deep and meaningful in a reasonably non-pretentious way. But he's also got all the fun aspects to keep you reading as well. So I think I'd probably stick with Stephen King, who was one of my first experiences of kind of true horror fiction as well. Now, having said that, obviously I'm a bit of an old fart, so if you've got different views in the comments, do let me know who you would recommend a young reader who was wanting to get into horror to read. Okay, next question is from Shannon's Bookish Musings, which if you've not checked out is an excellent channel, well worth a look. So Shannon's question is, well, she actually got two questions. So first question is, do you share your abominable snacks with your family or hide them in your office? I hide them in my office. So I hide them in my office and have them as restorative medicinal snacks when I'm on a particularly challenging teleconference or video conference for work. I do share the drinks with my family though. So all the drinks go in our drinks cupboard and are, anyone is free to have those, but the snacks I do hide away. And Shannon's second question is a more serious question. You may have already discussed on the channel, but if so, I forgot. Which of the Stephen King books you've read is your favourite? So I have discussed this on the channel. I did quite early on in the life of the channel, actually did a top 55, I think it was, Stephen King books. My favourite Stephen King book has been for a long time and continues to be The Shining, which I just think is a really excellent book. And, talking about, I've just mentioned Stephen King, haven't I? I think The Shining is one of those books where, as I said, he really taps into kind of human frailty and weakness and things like that in a really interesting way. So, and it's also a great horror novel. So yeah, The Shining for me is the best Stephen King book. Okay, final question then is from Snood. Hello Snood. Have you ever DNF'd a book for reasons other than boredom or just not being in the mood for it? I know you managed to push through Caligula, so I'd be interested to hear if you've encountered anything so offensive or disgusting that you just had to drop the book entirely. And the answer to this is no, I don't think I have. So I definitely DNF books if they're boring. I do that reasonably regularly, probably one or two a month. If they're just not gripping me, and quite often I do go back to books I've DNF'd, because if I picked a book up in the first place, it's because there's something that's calling to me about that book and I want to read it for whatever reason. So I do quite often, if I DNF a book, I quite often go back to it later and quite often have success with it second time round. But I don't think I've ever DNF'd a book because it was so horrible. And I think one of the reasons for that is that there's something quite fascinating about reading something really horrible. It's that kind of car crash moment, isn't it, where you just can't look away. So I think there's something that kind of compels me to continue reading, and almost to, I almost don't want the book to beat me. I don't want the author to beat me. And the other reason is if I'm disliking a book, but not necessarily bored by it, I kind of want to finish the book so I can review it. So I don't review books that I've DNF'd. I might say on the channel, I started this, I wasn't really getting on with it. But I'd never do a full review of a book unless I'd read it cover to cover. And if I really dislike a book and want to almost warn people against it, or at least explain to people why I disliked it, then in order to do that, I need to do a review, and therefore I need to finish the book. And, you know, there have been some books. So one would be The Slob by Erin Beauregard, which I thought was a deeply unpleasant book and also not a very good book. I don't think I did do a review of it as such on the channel, but I definitely talked about it in a wrap-up. And I think I did do a written review of it, actually. And that was a book that I really disliked and wanted to be able to talk about. And so powered through all the disgustingness in it, and it is really disgusting. I powered through all of the disgustingness in it in order to be able to, you know, have a conversation about the book. So that's my answers to a few more questions from you people out there. So thank you very much to everyone who asked a question. I do still have other questions I haven't got to yet. So if you asked a question and I haven't answered it, I will try and get to it in a future video. But as always, as I said at the start, if you'd like to ask your own question, then either put them in the comments with Ask CriminOlly at the start, or email me at criminolly@gmail.com. As always, thank you very much for watching. Do let me know in the comments if there's any books you've DNF'd because they were just too disgusting. Do let me know what your favourite Stephen King book is as well. And if you've got views on the paranormal, let me know those. But yeah, as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.